Hello dear friends, so we continue to read Śrī Īśopaniṣad with the commentaries by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. What Isopanishad is describing the laws of nature that we can utilize in our life or might not utilize. There are some laws that we can't really change or avoid or walk around. And people are trying to escape the outcomes of their actions. Isopanishad is describing those laws we cannot avoid or change. We can only understand it and just go along with it. It's the only way to liberation. We need to follow these laws, and these are the laws of liberation and the principles of freedom. These principles liberate a person, but in illusion we think something that prohibits me from doing something, stops me doing something, and this understanding leads me to some unhappiness. Isopanishad is explaining us what is real freedom, what is real way to freedom. The laws of nature are being described. And the main thing is to realize the absolute personality of Godhead and His will, that nothing beyond it exists, because it's a creation, not a man, but the Lord, with His laws. And we are reading from the mantra 13 today.
Anyatevahu sambhavat anyandur asambhavat.
Sambhavat and asambhavat. We have two more terms now. And before we had two terms, sambhuti, asambhuti, dependent, not dependent. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All that is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. The undisturbed term here in Sanskrit is dhira, and that is a very important term. The one who is powerful, concentrated on the one main goal, unmovable, undisturbed, the one who is not being disturbed by anything from the outside world. It does not attaches him or disgusts him. He doesn't feel nor hatred, nor love, no attachment. Dhira. Such a balanced man, he can see things as they are. The things as they are being described in the first mantra of Isopanishad. We have to become dhira in order to understand it. Sometimes they think what is science and what is false science. There are so many theories and teachings. What is false science? And here's the criteria. The real science goes from dhira. Everybody is wondering who can see the things for what they really are. If you are a scientist, then you need to be a dhira. It's not your ability to remember things or analyze things or observe the things, but it is not sufficient. Everything you do is under control of your mind. And if your life is not regulated, you will not be able to observe the things correctly. The things that influence your consciousness, your mind, makes it more vivid to you, and the rest you don't see. Once Sanatana Goswami covered a long way to see Lord Chaitanya, and he went through a jungle and some dangers. 500 years ago it was very, very dangerous. No cell phones, no means of connection. There was no such a material civilization. So when he came to see Lord Chaitanya, he looked very bad. He was not clean, he was dressed in ran-down clothes. And he didn't enter the place, he was sitting there next to it. And Lord Chaitanya said to his servant that there is one who came here, you need to open the door for him. He went there, he couldn't see anyone because he was looking for a devotee with the tilak on his forehead and shining one and clean one. He saw some beggar not far away, but no saints he could see. And he came back and said, no one is there. One man was asked to look out on the street, and he did. He saw one guy sweeping the street, and he came back saying, no one is there. You see, it depends on our mind, what we see, what we don't see. We don't see that this world has someone in control. And why do we have such an illusion? Because we are not dheras. Dhira is one who controls his senses. He immediately sees how this world is organized. So dhira is the source of real knowledge, authoritative source. When we've been talking about philosophy and preaching back in the Soviet times, and we were saying that there is soul and super soul and the rest, and people were saying like, where do you get this information? They were saying, oh, this is Veda. This is how we know it. And they were like, so what? And then we said, you need to try to follow the regulative principles for half a year and chanting Hare Krishna mantra, and then we'll be able to talk to you again. And those who tried, they started to understand this absolute truth in half a year. So the level of consciousness is pushing us to this understanding. So those who are addicted to alcohol or addicted to some material gain, they are not dearest, and so we cannot really get anything but what they have, like technologies or whatever they have. Their consciousness is aimed to comfort, to something that is pleasant, and they follow only their own desires. This is bad, this is good, this is my friend, that's my enemy. But the real thing is described differently here. Let's read some of the commentaries. By its so-called advancement of knowledge, human civilization has created many material things, including spaceships and atomic energy. Excuse me. The system of hearing from undisturbed authorities is approved in this mantra. Unless one hears from a bona fide ācārya who is never disturbed by the changes of the material world, one cannot have the real key to transcendental knowledge. The bona fide spiritual master, who has also heard the śruti-mantras of Vedic knowledge from his undisturbed ācārya, never presents anything that is not mentioned in the Vedic literature. Maya is bringing us, let's say, this pandemic situation, and it's bewildering people. Right now we are more getting used to it. But in the beginning, people didn't know whom to address with the problem. The hospitals being built, or they started to think about things, of material things, to solve the problem. But Dhira, he would never stop his spiritual practice whatsoever. He knows his life belongs to the Supreme Lord, not to doctors. He knows what to do, and of course he is following some of the principles not to get the disease, but if it happens, we just go back home, back to Godhead, and it's gonna happen to all of us. There's war and pandemic times, even in peaceful time, people are dying. Everyone is getting to this age, and Dhira, he knows this. Just like Gajendra elephant, when he was attacked by the crocodile, he thought, I'm strong, I will fight for my life. And he did all he could, but he was in the water, fighting in the water. He was not strong in the water, he is good at land. So the crocodile was winning. And when we are in the comfort zone, we acting pretty nicely. But when we are out of it, we can't do anything. So that heavenly elephant addressed the Lord when he was exhausted. He understood it's not about the crocodile that he needs to be worried about. It's the time for him to leave. Some people are dying of crocodile bites. Some people are dying of medicine. It's all predoomed. And the reason for our death is not the disease or anything else. It's just the time that is not allowing us to stay here for any second longer. And the way we're living is the way we're living. The one who is going to be hanged will not drown. But people are seeing one's death, they say, oh, he had a heart attack or something else. They think if there was no heart attack, he would still live. And they are not hearers, they are afraid of the death. They don't know that death does not exist. when someone dies of cancer, and his friends would say, if he wouldn't go south and to this sunlight active zone, he would still live. Of course, we are still alive, but we shouldn't think that if we avoid this pandemic situation or crocodile teeth, we would stay alive. No, this is the way the earth is with things. He is ready every day. He is not avoiding his spiritual practice. In the Bhagavad-gītā 9.25, it is clearly said that those who worship the pitṛs, or forefathers, attain the planets of the forefathers, that the gross materialists who make plans to remain here stay in this world, and that the devotees of the Lord who worship none but Lord Kṛṣṇa, the supreme cause of all causes, reach him in his spiritual sky. Here, also in Śrī Īśopaniṣad, it is verified that one achieves different results by different modes of worship. So those materialists, Prabhupada didn't mention who they worship into. They worship those who worship pitṛs, the forefathers. They go to the forefathers. And the materialists, they worship themselves, those who are in power.
Это все зря говорит?
Нет, там слышно, но не так сильно громко, как хотелось бы.
Теперь лучше?
Сейчас будем проверять.
Есть ответная реакция?
Да.
Так вот действует материальная природа, видите?
This is the influence of material nature. We always have some problems with it. We trust it, and then it's no good. So they worship to these strong personalities.
Это Матри Шапанишад подтверждает, что разные формы поклонения приносят разные плоды. Если мы поклоняемся Верховному Господу.
Here also in Śrī Īśopaniṣad it is verified that the one achieves different results by different modes of worship. If we worship the Supreme Lord, we will certainly reach him. If we worship demigods like Sun God and Moon God, we can reach their respective planets without a doubt. And if we wish to remain on this wretched planet with our planning commission and our stopgap political adjustments, we can certainly do that also. So the planet Earth is no good in here. The sun and the moon, when someone learns about them more, they would like to move there, because they would know that our conditions of life is not as comfortable as it's there on the sun and the moon. If you don't know any other places, then you will think that Earth is heaven. But if you would see just for a moment the other dimensions, you would lose your taste for life here. I've met one drug addict, some drug addicts. I had to work with them. And I know that if someone is getting this taste of the drug, you can't really do anything. Same thing with the spiritual knowledge. So, I've met one guy, he was a son of rich parents, and he was a drug addict, and we were reading from some books, some spiritual books, and I've been talking to him about spiritual knowledge, and he was sharing with me his confidential thoughts, and he said, I think that I can get rid of this drug very easily if I get something interesting in my life. Because after the drug, everything is kind of gray looking. And we know from the story of these famous actresses and actors and musicians, they were taking drugs to express something that is unseen by others. I've seen the drug addicts sing. It's attractive. And those who deal with them, they become drug addicts as well. In our world, it's going through the intoxications because our life is gray and there are so many dangers out there, and you need to support yourself and work, and you get your flat, and then 20 years after you're still paying for it. So we're like slaves comparing to the things that are being provided, the comfort that is being provided by the moon or sun planet. A lot of kshatriyas, they knew if they're being killed on the battlefield, doing their duty, they're going to the higher planets. This is a glorious death. And another one is when you're in yogi and you're in trance and you're leaving your body, you go in there to the heavenly planets. Their life is being glorified because their souls are being elevated. And the death of others is not glorious. So if you learn about other forms of life or places like heaven, they would want to go there. So that's why they're worshipping those demigods who are in control of those planets. I can help you with getting to the sun. The head of the sun is called Surya Narayan or Vivasvan. You can address him by that name. You meet him every morning and you will get health, strong health. When the sun rises, the relationship with the sun god is like every morning you offer some obeisances to it and pour some water. There's a way to go to the higher planets. Or you can worship him as a servant of the Lord, the Supreme Lord, to get the connection with the Supreme Lord. We don't do this in ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. We only worship Krishna. We know that he is in the heart of every living entity, and he is the only one spreading himself as Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, and everything is being supported by him, and all we see around is just his own energies. And besides all that, he has his own independence. He's not attached to any of this material world. And we need to establish the relationship with this all-attractive Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we are worshipping Chandra, we will go to the moon. If we are worshipping Sun God, we will go to the sun. It's 6 months here and only 12 hours out there. You can live there 100 years, Or you can multiply your years. There are some ways to do it. But still, there would be an end to it, and you will have to go back here to work again. Nowhere in authentic scriptures it is said that one will ultimately reach the same goal by doing anything or worshipping anyone. Such foolish theories are offered by self-made spiritual masters who have no connection with the Paramatma. The bona fide system of disciplic succession, the bona fide spiritual master cannot say that all paths lead to the same goal and that anyone can attain this goal by his own mode of worship, of demigods or of the Supreme or whatever. Any common man can very easily understand that a person can reach his destination only when he has purchased a ticket for the destination. A person who has purchased a ticket for Calcutta can reach Calcutta, but not Bombay. But the so-called spiritual masters say that any and all paths will take one to the supreme goal. Such mundane and compromising offers attract many foolish creatures who become puffed up with their manufactured methods of spiritual realization. The Vedic instructions, however, do not uphold them. It is fashionable to learn some of this, to buy the coaching courses and stuff, to get rich. But it is said that if our richness would only depend on our education, then any person who is getting the education would be rich. But we can see that people getting equal education and sometimes even put more forces into it, they are still poor with the same education level. If it would depend only on our forces, on our input, then we would be rich. That's all they say. They say you need to get to work and do something. But the laws of the nature is different. Something depends on our input, and some things does not depend. The Vedic instructions, however, do not uphold them unless one has received knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master, who is in the recognized line of disciplic succession. One cannot have a real thing as it is. So when one is poor and one is rich, what do we say? We say that karma, he depends on his karma. His previous activity is making his present life. I have nothing else to do if I didn't experience it in the past. Someone is being taught and he gets it, but another one, he remains full. But he's really skilled at doing something bad. He still needs some knowledge to do it, right? But you can't really learn maths or pass some exams. He was doing it in the past. That's why it is so advanced. If in the previous life we never been engaged in a devotional service and we were not appreciating the saints, then it will be hard for us to accept it or appreciate it. Even if we do it unconsciously, like we've helped some older person to cross the street, and he was a pure-hearted one, a priest or someone, and we didn't know that. And we have this plus in our karma that is called agyata sukriti. Today I've heard something about spiritual, and suddenly I realize it. This is agyata sukriti, something I did in the past unknowingly. And when the saints are telling me something, and I say, I don't understand it, I don't accept, it means my sinful activity in the past prevents me from getting it. So the only way we can change this situation of this karma is accepting the knowledge, getting the knowledge, going through this line of disciplic succession, authoritative. Just like they say, only God can forgive you, no one else. In the past ages, kings were ruling, and those prisoners could be mercied, could get mercy from the king to be liberated. And he would not stay in the prison anymore. In his lifetime, he realized what he was doing wrong.
Ни министерства, ни законы не могут его простить, потому что по закону он должен сидеть все же. Но все же есть такие вещи,
no laws could allow that, but the mercy of the king released him. Same thing with the Lord. The mercy of the Lord liberates you from all the sins and forgives you if we are sincere taking this path. Sincerely, it can happen only in this disciplic succession. You go to this coaching, but even though you are provided with all the necessary things, you cannot use it because our previous deeds prevents me from doing things. But people are getting education and they're going through these courses and they think, now I can start the business. And they say, I need to start, in order to start business, I need some money first. And then I go and I get some credit. I put the money in my business and then I'm ruined and I can't do anything. But there are some people who have a proper mind to be poor and start their own business and be successful and become rich. I've met one guy who's been into gymnastics and he was trained for many years, but he was incapable of doing anything. His body was not strong enough. He couldn't hold it. He was working the most of all. And then there was another one who joined very late. And in 3 months he was the number one. But he never trained before. This is karma. In my school time, there was a boy who would stay the last one in the row. And he was the weakest one. And there was another one who would be very strong. And it depends on these laws that people don't know. It predefines our body type, predefines our health and our life, our future children. Such knowledge exists. Isopanishad explains it, but does not go into the details.
кому все принадлежит, и не берешь больше, чем тебе
If you know
положено, говорит свой Ишопанишад, ты можешь жить сотни лет в этом мире.
who is the
Не испытывай
holder of
страдания.
everything,
Просто. Не притязай на
but you
чужую
know it
собственность.
and you don't really
Определи свою долю. Пойми,
try
в
to
чем твоя
get a
доля.
piece of
Доля твоего
someone
разума,
else's
доля твоей
heart,
пищи,
then
доля
you can
твоего
live hundreds of
богатства.
years
И так во всем есть
with
моя
that.
доля, выделенная мне
You have
лично.
your
Это
own
мое. Я не нарушу
part,
закона природы.
but you
Но сверх
cannot go
того,
over it.
я
You will be
отвечаю,
punished for it.
это меня запутает.
It will
Карма-бандана называется в Бхагavad-гītā.
Bind me.
Если я беру,
It's called karma
я становлюсь
bandhana.
вором. Если беру
I will
ложь.
become, this way I will become a
Так все эти ложные учителя сегодня
thief.
бизнес-тренера, они нас
So the coaches
направляют
today,
на то, чтобы
they
больше
are
и больше взять это
leading us to become
с точки зрения Ишопанишада,
a thief,
с точки
to
зрения
take
закона
more
бытия и кармы.
than it is
Поэтому нужно получить знания по
that I'm
технической
supposed to get.
преданности от Бога. Это называется получить от Бога.
Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gītā 4.2,
4.2 Эвам парампара праптам имам раджарша йо виду. Са калиняха махата йоганаштапа.
the supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, what succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. There are two important things in this verse. The knowledge exists, but it can be lost. This is the world we're living in. Everything is getting lost. And this is the most dangerous thing, is to lose the knowledge. It's like losing yourself. The knowledge about yourself, remembering who I am.
И тогда мы видим вот эти все виды знаний, это не первозданные
So,
знания. Они уже вам не могут
the
объяснить,
rest,
кто
the
вы.
knowledge that we
Они
would
могут
remain
и
there
химию, историю
would
не
not
знают,
explain us
астрономию,
who we are.
математику
You can
высшую, что
know
угодно,
the
кибернетику,
maths and physics
такие
and
потрясающие вещи,
all
но они
this,
не могут вам объяснить изначально, кто вы.
but it will not
Это
provide
уже
you with the
знание
real
не
knowledge
изначально,
of who you
это
are.
знание.
This
Как
is
мы
how
проверяем,
we
изначально это знание
can
или нет.
prove
Изначальное знание ясно дает вам представление
the
о
essential
вашей
knowledge
конституциональной
and
вечной позиции,
some
вечной позиции, которая вам никогда не
useless, some
принесет
secondary
потерь
knowledge.
и вреда.
The real knowledge
Зная эту позицию,
will
можете
not
жить в этом мире сотни лет.
lead you to any sort of gain, any sort of
К
loss.
тому времени, когда Господь Шри
When
Кришна
Lord
пришел в этот мир,
Shri Krishna was present on this earth, the Bhakti Yoga principles defined in the Bhagavad-gītā had become distorted. Therefore, the Lord had to re-establish the disciplic system beginning with Arjuna, who was the most confidential friend and devotee of the Lord. The Lord clearly told Arjuna, Bhagavad-gītā 4.3, that it was because Arjuna was his devotee and friend that he could understand the principles of the Bhagavad-gītā. In other words, only the Lord's devotee and friend can understand the Gita. This also means that only one who follows the path of Arjuna can understand the Bhagavad-gītā. Nowadays it is hard to become not only a friend of God, but even to understand who is God. They say he has no eyes or hands. How can you become a friend like one, with one? People are always criticizing something in him. And meanwhile, in Sanskrit, he is being called Uttama Shlok. And to talk about him, you need to recite elevated things with music. Those who are sinful and their misery in this world, they only criticize the Lord. This is madness. Don't be so wondering why people cannot see things for what they are. If you see an enemy in God, then you're gonna live with the enemy. If you see impersonal God, then you're gonna live with impersonal situation. You will have the same eyes. If you would think about the Lord as the all-attractive one, dear friend and close one, everyone will be dear to you. We cannot avoid this law of nature. We are particles of Him. We depend on Him. Everybody. The way we think about Him defines who we are. Those who are saying there is no God, it's the worst thing imaginary. It was written in Dostoevsky, Brother Karamazov's. If there is no God, then there is no law, you can do anything. At the present moment, there are many interpreters and translators of this sublime dialogue who care nothing for Lord Kṛṣṇa or Arjuna. Such interpreters explain the verses of the Bhagavad-gītā in their own way and postulate all sorts of rubbish in the name of the Gita. Such interpreters believe neither in Krishna nor in His eternal abode. How then can they explain the Bhagavad-gītā? Krishna certainly says that only those who have lost their sense worship the demigods for paltry awards. Bhagavad-gītā 7:20-23. Ultimately, he advises that one give up all other ways and modes of worship and fully surrender unto Him alone. So those who worship demigods, they go into the heavenly planets and they live in years in heaven. They're absent-minded because they're getting this fruit that is really nothing. But for people here, they think to get to heaven it's so good. For the transcendentalists, who knows the real essence of life, he's thinking about that place like it is a hell. But heaven is just like here. It's all about mating, fighting, and sleeping and eating. You can still live in the hotel not knowing who you are. The essence doesn't change. The animal is eating and sleeping and mating, and human does the same in their apartment. And he thinks he is higher than the animal. No, if he lives for these four principles, then he is the same. More than that, he might get the form of the animal in his next life. Living like the animal does, he can get the animal body in the future. Same thing on those planets, heavenly planets. Everything is so much better. Sexual life, your dreams, you can protect yourself so much better. But these principles drags us down to earth. This is the waste of your karma. Food, sex, protecting, and dream, sleeping. The same principle. The dog is eating, fighting, and everything just on the street. Different form, but the same essence. But the dog doesn't spend its karma, its good karma. When a tiger kills a deer, he doesn't feel hatred towards him. This is the nature. Same with the dog. It doesn't go over its limits. So it does not violate the laws. And this is the advantage comparing to the human life. Human can violate these laws. You need to understand why you have this form of life and how not to waste your good karma. Heavenly planets is just a temporary lie. You have this soft pillow, and then it's going to be taken from you. So these people are absent-minded, or who wants to go there to these planets. This is being said by the Lord, the Supreme Lord, not a human who will not be believed in.
Bhagavad-gītā 18:66.
Only those who are cleansed of all sinful reactions can have such unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord. Others will continue hovering on the material platform with their paltry ways of worship and thus will be misled from the real path under the false impression that all paths lead to the same goal. So, till we get the real knowledge from the Lord, we will not be able to change anything in our life. In this mantra of Śrī Īśopaniṣad, the word Sambhavat, by worship of the Supreme Cause, is very significant. Lord Kṛṣṇa is the original personality of Godhead, and everything that exists has emanated from Him. In the Bhagavad-gītā 10.8, the Lord says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So He is the source of everything. He is saying it. Here is a correct description of the Supreme Lord given by the Lord Himself. The words Sarvasya Prabhava indicate that Krishna is the creator of everyone, including Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva. And because these three principal deities of the material world are created by the Lord is the creator of all that exists in the material and spiritual worlds. In the ācārya Veda, Gopālatapani Upanishad 1.24, it is similarly said, He who existed before the creation of Brahma and who enlightened Brahma with Vedic knowledge is Lord Śrī Kṛṣṇa. Similarly, the Narayana Upanishad states, Then the Supreme Person, Narayan, desired to create all living beings. Thus, from Narayan, Brahma was born. Narayan created all the Prajapatis. Narayan created Indra. Narayan created the 8 Vasus. Narayan created the 11 Rudras. Narayan created the 12 Adityas. Narayan and Krishna is non-different from each other. Since Narayan is a plenary manifestation of the Lord, Narayan and Krishna are one and the same. The Narayana Upanishad 4 also states Devaki's son, Krishna, is the Supreme Lord. The identity of Narayan with the Supreme Cause has also been accepted and confirmed by Śrīpad Shankaracharya. Even though Shankara does not belong to the Vaishnava or personalist cult, the ācārya Veda, Maha Upanishad 1, also states, only Narayan existed in the beginning when neither Brahma, nor Shiva, no fire, no water, no stars, no sun, no moon existed. The Lord does not remain alone but creates as He desires. Krishna Himself states in the Moksha Dharma, I created the Prajapatis and the Rudras. They do not have complete knowledge of me because they are covered by my illusory energy. It is also stated in the Varaha Purana, Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and from Him the four-headed Brahma was manifested, as well as Rudra, who later became omniscient. Thus, all Vedic literature confirms that Narayan or Krishna is the cause of all causes. In the Brahma Samhita 5.1, also it is said that the Supreme Lord is Śrī Kṛṣṇa, Govinda, the delighter of every living being, and the primordial cause of all causes. The really learned persons know this from evidence given by the great sages and the Vedas, and thus they decide to worship Lord Krishna as all in all. Such persons are called Buddha, or really learned, because they worship only Krishna. So, not to talk about worshipping of the spirits and ghosts, people are worshipping them. The conviction that Krishna is all in all is established when one hears the transcendental message from the undisturbed ācārya with faith and love. One who has no faith in one or love for Lord Kṛṣṇa cannot be convinced of this simple truth. Some people are saying, Krishna, it's interesting. I've heard about him. So he's God. This is interesting. They like it. But in 2 days, they say, oh, you know, the internet search gave me something else. They say the Lord, he's not the Lord, and now they are discouraged. They're weak. You need to listen to ācārya speaking about Krishna. That would be a forest fire that will not be seized by any storm. Then you won't be discouraged. Those who are faithless are described in the Bhagavad-gītā 9.11 as mudas, fools or asses. It is said that the mudas deride the personality of Godhead because they do not have complete knowledge from the undisturbed ācārya. One who is disturbed by the whirlpool of material energy is not qualified to become an ācārya. Before hearing the Bhagavad-gītā, Arjuna was disturbed by the material whirlpool, by this affection for his family, society and community. Thus Arjuna wanted to become a philanthropic, non-violent man of the world. But when he became Buddha, by hearing the Vedic knowledge of the Bhagavad-gītā from the Supreme Person, he changed his decision and became a worshipper of Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa, who had himself arranged the battle in Kurukshetra. Arjuna worshipped the Lord by fighting with his so-called relatives, and in this way he became a pure devotee of the Lord. Such accomplishments are possible only when one worships the real Krishna and not some fabricated Krishna invented by foolish men who are without knowledge of the intricacies of the science of Krishna described in the Bhagavad-gītā and Śrīmad Bhagavatam. So, all the relatives and friends, this is who we're living for. Arjuna did the same. Look what happened in one nation, one family. There were so many crises and the relatives been fighting each other, and the families were breaking apart. But when you're fighting, fulfilling the desire of Krishna, fighting your relatives, he was doing it. Sometimes you need to do the will of the Lord, not your relatives. When all your relatives are in ignorance, to take all of them out of this illusion, you need to accept the order of the Lord. And in this way, the father goes against the son, and you divide, so that family has divided into Kaurava and Pandavas, and Arjuna was like that. He was not following his own principles, but he was following the Lord's word. He wanted, in the beginning, he was saying like, who cares? I don't care about this kingdom. I will go into the forest. I will not shed the blood. But the Lord said that no, you have to follow the righteous moves. You need to reestablish the goodness, and you need to win, and you are the warrior. It's your duty to fight. And we say, yes, I know, when there is an enemy, like Nazists came, fascists came, I need to deal with it. But if we look at this from the wider angle, we understand that all the living people on this earth, they are all relatives. Even those who study the genes, they understand that everything is so much mixed up. And when people start to think about it, they start to understand we are one family. Yes, but our borders are just illusionary ones. Where did you read about France or Russia or anything? This is just one family, and the family might have some foolish kids and smart kids, and some older people or younger, but when you are facing another race, you're confused, or temper, or character, you're blind, you're white, you're black, this racism is still there. You need to read Isopanishad in order to understand these things. According to the Vedanta Sutra, Sambhuta is the source of birth and sustenance, as well as the reservoir that remains after annihilation. Janmadi Yasyayataha, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. So the source and the reservoir and sustenance. The Śrīmad Bhagavatam, the natural commentary of the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, maintains that the source of all emanations is not like the dead stone, but is abhijya, or fully conscious. The primeval Lord Shri Krishna also says in Bhagavad-gītā 7.26 that he is fully conscious of past, present and future, and that no one, including demigods such as Shiva and Brahma, knows him fully. Certainly, half-educated spiritual leaders who are described by the disturbed by the tides of material existence cannot know him fully. They try to make some compromise by making the mass of humanity the object of worship, but they do not know that such worship is only a myth, because the masses are imperfect. The attempt by these so-called spiritual leaders is something like pouring water on the leaves of the tree instead of the root. The natural process is to pour water on the root, but such disturbed leaders are more attracted to the leaves than the root. Despite their perpetually watering the leaves, however, everything dries up for want of nourishment. They put in so much efforts into improving this world. Pulling the tear, the nose is there, drowning. So, no use.
советует поливать корень,
Śrī Īśopaniṣad
источник
advises
всех побегов.
us to pour water on the root, the source of all
сводящиеся к
germination,
удовлетворению их телесных
worship
потребностей,
of the mass
всегда
of humanity
несовершенна,
by rendering
потому не так
bodily
важно,
service, which can
как
never be
служение
perfect,
душе.
is less important
Сегодняшние ученые
than
поклоняются
service to the soul.
потребностям человека, технологии,
Like
удобству,
today,
изобретают,
those
изобретают,
scientists,
изобретают.
they're trying to serve
Поклоняются
the
человеку,
needs of human. They worship the human.
его тенденцию к чувственности
The tendency
обожествляют.
to
Во
the
главе угла
self-gratification
наслаждать чувства человека. О, для
is
человека
getting
мебель, для человека
of
магазин,
more
для человека
importance.
то, для человека все. Но в итоге мы чувствуем, что мы в
But
рабстве
in the end,
находимся
we
этой системы.
understand we're in the slavery.
Так и говорится. Ягата крамано ньятралу
This is
ваян
what they
карма
say,
бандана. Любая
the karma
деятельность, если
bandhana.
она не для Бога,
Any
а для
activity,
человека, станет
if
причиной
it's
рабства, карма банданой.
if it's
Ловушка,
addressed the human,
иллюзия.
it will be a trap.
Śrī Īśopaniṣad советует поливать корень, да. Душа — это тот
Śrī
корень,
Īśopaniṣad advises us
который в
to
соответствии
water
с
the root.
законами
The
кармы
soul is the root that
порождает
generates different
тела
types of
различных
bodies according to
типов.
the law of
Если
karma.
мы служим
To serve
только
human
людям,
beings by medical
оказывая
aid,
медицинскую или
social
социальную
help,
помощь,
and educational facilities,
предоставляем
while at the
возможность
same
получить
time
образование,
cutting the
в
throat
то же
of
время
poor animals
прерываем
in slaughterhouses,
на
is
бойнях,
no service at all to
перерезаем
the
на бойнях
soul,
глотки
the living being.
несчастным животным, то это не может считаться служением душе, живому существу. Животное
The
также
living
душа.
being,
Где же служение душе?
the animal, is also a soul. Where is this
Для
service
языка
to the soul?
человека убивают животное, другое
In
живое
order to
существо.
serve the tongue of a human
Как можно
being, you
удовлетворить
kill
душу,
another
убивая
living
кого-то
entity.
другого?
How can you satisfy the soul by
Применяя
killing,
насилие какое-то, да? Химсу.
committing
Когда воин
himsa?
сражается на
When a warrior is fighting on the battlefield,
это не
Kurukshetra,
химса, там равные
it's not ahimsa.
законы
have
войны
equal
существуют,
rights there.
справедливые законы войны.
The right,
Воины вступают в честную схватку.
and they are getting to
Побеждает уже
fight,
от высшей воли зависит,
and the
от
one
кармы,
who
но
is
всё
winning,
всё
it
понятно,
depends
погиб
on
на
karma
поле
and the
нормально.
supreme will, and
Не обвиняется никто.
no one is to be blamed
Но как
there.
можно придумать такое животное,
how
которое
can you
имеет право,
imagine,
чтобы постоять за себя, режут голову, нет?
killing an animal who cannot fight
Которое
back,
доверяет человеку,
who trusts a human,
служило человеку.
was serving to the
Молоко давало,
human, given milk?
Это не служение душе, нет.
It's not a service to the soul.
Живое существо
The living
в
beings
телах
is
различных
perpetually
типов постоянно
suffering in
испытывает
different types of
материальные
bodies,
страдания,
from the
связанные с
material
рождением,
miseries
старостью,
of birth,
болезнью и
old age,
смертью.
disease, and death.
Человеческая
The human form of
жизни
life offers one a
предоставляет
chance to get
шанс
out of
вырваться из
this
пут
entanglement simply by re-establishing the
Для
lost
этого нам
relationship
достаточно
between the living entity and the
восстановить
Supreme
свои
Lord.
прерванные отношения с Верховным Господом. Господь сам не
The
сходит в
Lord
материальный
comes
мир,
personally to
чтобы
teach this
призвать
philosophy
людей предаться Всевышнему,
of surrender unto the Supreme, the Sambhuta.
по-настоящему служит
Real service to humanity is rendered when one teaches surrender to and worship of the Supreme Lord with full love and energy. That is the instruction of Śrī Īśopaniṣad in this mantra.
Śrī Īśopaniṣad. Да, здесь мы остановимся.
We're gonna stop here because the commentary is pretty long. It's still going, but we'll get the understanding. We're gonna continue next time, and now we're gonna accept some questions. I will read the text again, the translation of this mantra. We've covered 8 pages of the commentary. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. So, when we worship an independent, the cause of all causes, or dependent, we will get different results. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it.
Вопрос от Руслана Ягудина. Как справиться с сильной ревностью
how to deal with the jealous when you want to kill someone for it. Well, then kill your sins. You want to kill? That's okay. You need to find the one to kill. Start with your own qualities. Address it your way, and you will become a miracle maker. If you return to Maya and you kill, you will be killed. You deceive, you will be deceived. You hit, you will be hit. But you turn this all the way around, and there will be some magic coming your way. What are the signs of one chanting Namabhas and not Namabharat? Namabhas liberates you from miseries. This is the sign. If you are chanting Namabhas, you will be liberated. Yesterday you said you should not push yourself to chanting the holy name. But if I'm not pushing myself, I will make it Namaparat. Well, you can over-push. You need to be careful. In the Bhagavad-gītā, chapter 6, it is being explained that in Samadhi, you need to go gradually into that state, step by step. Shanar Shanai in Sanskrit. Slowly, gradually. Shani, you know that planet? You cannot do it roughly, because your psychic, you can twist your mind this way. You're gonna get feedback, and your mind is much stronger. It should be attracted by the taste, this gradual process. The mind is very slow. The thoughts are quick, but the mind is really crucified on the same spot, and it doesn't want to go anywhere. In this way, it's immovable. But we need to let him know that you're not this body, and you attract him through the pleasures, through the taste. This way, he will go there. You would feel the odor and move there. In the material world, it goes from one smell to another one very slowly, and it takes many lifetimes, this process, till he understands that nothing is really changing. When we are chanting mantra, this is a supersonic speed of understanding. The psychology of the mind is, if you call someone a fool, the mind will immediately protect himself. You're a fool, I'm not a fool. If you say to a devotee, you will say, you are a pure devotee. He would say, no, what do you say? This is the way the mind reacts. So you need to learn how to preach to the mind. And we can do it by attaining the knowledge state. And once you are pushing the mind to chanting, you might stop. You start with one round, and you gain certain concentration in that, and you see how good it is. When the mind is concentrated, then you add more to reach 4 rounds. And this is excellent, because gradually you enlarge this taste, and the mind is following you, is giving you nourishing. With the time, what you get from 4 to 8 rounds, and it's becoming natural for you. But if your mind is wandering around and is used to it, it's not disciplined, then you need to talk to him. For 2 hours, you need to sit down and listen. 16 rounds, and you do it for 2 hours. This is how you attain the mind. This is what we do to children. They go to school for the first time, and they said, you're gonna be sitting here for 40 minutes on one spot, 45 minutes. I went to school, I remembered. But the teacher is there for 45 minutes, and then in the university they tell you it's doubled, 90 minutes, or 2 lessons by 90 minutes, and everybody is like, okay. So gradually you can develop it. So you need some discipline, but please don't overpush. Is it possible to speak only about Krishna and stop yourself from talking when you start to say about yourself? This is, I've noticed that there is a line in my talking. When I stop talking about Krishna, I start to criticize. Yeah, this is very nice that you've noticed it. It's a good way to go. From a scientific point of view, everything we are talking about is from the scientific point of view. Okay, look, here is the scientific point of view, and not scientific point of view is really something you can argue about, but people are saying, this is what I've heard. There is a scientific point of view and not scientific point of view. The thing that leads you to liberation is the scientific point of view. The thing that leads you to attachment and suffering is not a scientific point of view. The Shastras are giving us things that we cannot prove, but when there is no proof, there is no scientific. It's not scientific. But if you cannot prove, then how can you say it's not scientific? When we're talking about supreme things, our scientific approach does not work. I can't say it exists because I can't believe in it, and because I cannot prove it, I still can say it does not exist. I cannot create a universe according to my theory that this is how it was created. It's beyond my experience. What scientific approach should we apply to these things? The things we cannot really study. What is the method? The only scientific method for it is Shravanam, to hear about it. And when we hear about it, we can make another step, we can follow it, and then we will get our own experience, and we understand it. By accepting the Vedas, we understand it. By accepting the medicine, we get away from disease. While you are not accepting, you will not be able to understand. because it's beyond our experience. Everything that is written in the Vedas about the planetary systems and the spiritual world, material world, we can get with all these numbers and digits, we can get it through our own experience, not through spacecrafts, but developing our own consciousness. It's not complicated if you see it. How do I understand if I'm taking only my part? The criteria for it is our main duty, is self-realization. If your material activity leads you away from self-realization, this is not important, this is not your part. There is an example. The amount of food is being defined by the size of a stomach, but you can stretch it, right? And then another thing, the ability to digest. So your ability to digest the spiritual, whatever you do, your activity should match your digestion. Your activity puts some food into your stomach, but if you get things and you cannot digest it, then it means you go beyond your limits. You're just poisoning yourself this way. Everything that we are taking, the more and more things we take, would be just a poison because it's not your part. These are two examples. Your part is ability to take and to utilize it at the same time. We have two hands, not to hide things away in order to poison yourself, but to utilize it. By utilizing it, we can still take something new. This is my part. If I am not utilizing it by hiding it, then I go over the limit and violate the laws of nature. To follow the Arjuna's footsteps means to ask questions from a spiritual master. Yeah, that's right. It's a classical example of Arjuna. He's a pure devotee and eternal associate of Lord Kṛṣṇa, and whenever he's in hard times, he's listening from Kṛṣṇa. Can sinful man serve the devotees? If devotees don't want to accept his service, has he no way out? Well, there is no such a term of sinful. If he is serving the devotee, he is not considered to be sinful. He is one of the associates of the devotees. No one is going to pay attention to his sins. It will be he might still think that he's a sinner, but he cannot be considered as one by others. That would be an offense. What is personal service to Guru, and how do I do it on distance? I am into Sankirtana and rest. When I hear to lectures of my spiritual master, I hear the instructions. I can hear about Kṛṣṇa and Lord Chaitanya, different topics. But why do I listen to it? In order to get instructions, not to entertain myself. So what I do, I need to chant mantra better. I need to think about the preaching and widening the preaching. And then I have so much duties. That means I listen to the spiritual master. It means I serve him personally. What if I murmur Mahamantra when I am leaving my body? Is there a chance that I get a new birth among the devotees? When you are at the time of death, you're gonna scream either Mama or Krishna. That would be your exam. That will be all your life source, life power. It will be focused one way. So if we murmur during the life, the mantra, but closer to the death, we are much more focused. How do I learn to listen to spiritual master and understand the will of Krishna? This is the way of life. It will become naturally if you follow 4 principles. You chanting your mantra regularly, it will happen just like that. How do I understand my duty? Sometimes I'm helpless. I'm the journalist, but I cannot speak openly. This is karma bandhana. It's called ugra karma. We are engaged in the bad things, and we can't say it's not good. And it's developing this way. Continue to work. This is karma. We can't change anything about it in the world through the work, but at the same time you need to preach the Krishna consciousness. You need to write articles about the spiritual. You should not even mention Krishna, but it's better to give spiritual things first, and people will get it later. We are not fighting these slaughterhouses, but this is what they do. They inform people, they talk about it. And in Spain, in many cities, but Madrid, this corridor been closed because people are informed that this is violence, this is like slaughtery. But nowadays, like if you try to close the slaughterhouse, you won't be successful, but you need to give information about it. You need to inform people. Vegans are against this, and a lot of people are fighting for the cow rights. And the slaughterhouses will cease to exist this way if we get the knowledge. People should get the knowledge. Good, we're gonna stop here.